You're listening to the Light Novel Podcast. Visit us online at lightnovelpodcast.com. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Light Novel Podcast. I am Justus R, and tonight we've got pretty much a full house here. Tonight we're going to be talking about a series that has become an object of quite a bit of controversy, and that is the series Goblin Slayer. We will be focusing primarily on the light novel since, it's the Light Novel Podcast, but also just kind of to highlight some of the places where the light novel is a bit different. Unlike Crunchyroll, I will warn you ahead of time that there will be discussions of some serious and somewhat disturbing things. There are topics of rape in Goblin Slayer, quite a bit of violence in Goblin Slayer. So if these things bother you, totally understandable. So feel free, if you don't want to continue, listen to the news. We're going to cover the news first, and then we'll get into the discussion of Goblin Slayer after that. And yeah. And I'll probably warn you again just in case, because, I'm just trying to be that helpful kind of guy. So first of all, I have with me tonight, I have Flyz returning from the dead computer lands.
Yo, what up? I'm alive.
I have BioGundam.
Kill all goblins.
I've got Jean-Luc.
Goblins are over there, Mr. Officer. Please catch them.
Wow, we're already taking this very seriously. Thank you, gentlemen. And then finally, I have Terrence.
Yo, I have nothing on goblins. Sorry.
Traitor.
All right. So first of all, let us start with the news of the what's going on. We've actually had I think at least an extra week or so since we've recorded one of these, so there's quite a bit. I'll try and go through it quickly. First of all, there is a couple of video game news. First of all, there is a Date Alive video game in the works, believe it or not. And the only details that we have so far is that apparently the light novel author is doing the story for it. So I'm guessing if there's a story, there must be some element of RPG to it. That's my guess. Keeping along with the Date Alive news, there is a season 3 of the anime coming in 2019.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
A very popular series that for some strange reason nobody has licensed in English yet. Now this one's really weird to me, but I was like, I don't know. I guess it's because of isn't like Shonen Jump or someone, they're doing a video game where they're crossing over all their characters like Bleach, One Piece,
Yes.
all that kind of stuff, right? Okay. So Fantasia Bunko obviously felt left out. So they're now doing a video game featuring characters from a whole bunch of their properties. Like, and I'm like, I don't know how the hell this is going to work. How to Raise a Boring Girlfriend, Sky Wizards Academy, Slayers, Anti-Magic Academy, the 35th Test Platoon, The Legend of Legendary Heroes, Date Alive, Tokyo Ravens, Chika the Coffin Princess. I mean,
Power scaling is going to be all off, man.
Well,
so basically, it's all the characters from Saikano about to get destroyed by all these supernatural characters with the magic abilities.
Like, I'm just reading this list of characters. I'm like, okay, I don't understand.
Well, actually, it's not the first time they do a crossover with the Bunko stuff.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, there was a Game Boy game, like a Game Boy DS game, if I remember correctly. I don't remember the name, but it was a kind of RPG. Like you had Magical Index, you had the other franchise from that company also.
Wait, are you talking about Dengeki Bunko Fighting Climax?
No, it was way before that.
Okay, then never mind.
I know they just did they did a game where they crossed over a certain magical index and what was that? Like VR fighting, like
game.
the mecha game.
Game.
Yeah,
it was
mecha game.
Yeah, it was fun.
Oh,
the
man.
opening song is great. I have it downloaded on my hard drive. Like,
So anyway, I don't know if this will be one that we get in English. It'll be kind of interesting to see how they manage to put that all together. And following with the anime news, there is a light novel series called Assassin's Pride, which is getting a light novel. Which is a light novel series getting an anime. The series takes place in a world where only those from noble families have the mana to be able to fight against monsters. Kufa is a noble born to a duke's family who is sent to tutor a young woman named Merida. If it turns out that Merida has no talent with mana, Kufa is secretly instructed to assassinate her. Wow, that's pretty hardcore.
listen, it's cool. It's just called They Went Away to the Farm.
And then following with even more anime news, do you love your mom and her 2-hit multi-target attacks? Is getting an anime that, seriously, like, we've been calling it mom isekai, but like, let's face it, I was actually doing an entry for EnglishLightNovels.com for that, and so I looked up like artwork from the light novel. Oh yeah, it's totally isekai milf like that. It's much better to, like, oh my god, like, wow. I mean, at least with that one, I don't have to feel dirty looking at pictures of the mom because she's a mom.
I can at least hope that they're not blood related.
I'm not oh god. No, I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be blood related. I don't know.
I don't think there's any. I hope there's no romance between them, but
no.
Out.
From what I understand, actually, I think Kyle was saying this on the last one, was that I guess apparently they do actually introduce other love interests for the son, and it's just that mom is like meddling in it. Either trying to get him hooked up or to keep them apart, but like, it's not like mom and son do anything.
Yeah, I heard she just like embarrasses him the whole novel, which is kind of what I expected.
Chick already. She's funny. She's just fucking with him.
Also, we are getting an anime of My Next Life as a Villainess. All routes lead to doom. This one, you know what? Well, I'm guessing this is probably one of the series that Sam was talking about on the last podcast when he said he knew of series that were going to get an anime that they've licensed, but he couldn't say which ones. So this one, they haven't even released. They're releasing the first volume November 17th. So I'm actually really looking forward to that one. It sounds hysterical.
Don't worry, Justice. I'll make sure to pick his brain. All it requires a bunch of rope and a few jumper cables.
Oh, jeez. Now I'm going to butcher this title really hardcore, but so pardon me, but it's another TV anime coming out, which is Ore wo Suki Nano wa Omai Dake Kayo. My apologies to the Japanese speakers. It's a comedy series, a romantic comedy series. Amatsuyu Akirisagi is invited out alone by the cool beauty upperclassman Cosmos and his childhood friend Himawari. Expecting to hear their confessions, he triumphantly goes to meet each of them in turn. But Cosmos and Himawari both instead confess to Amatsuyu that they like his friend. Burn, bro.
NTR.
Amatsuyo finds this lonely battle, but there is another girl who is looking at him. She is a gloomy girl with glasses and braids. Amatsuyu finds that he hates her because she's always turning her sharp tongue only on him and finding enjoyment in his troubles. But it turns out that she's the only one who actually does like him.
This sounds like pretty much... You remember her in middle school? This is her now. The old yet, pretty much.
Yeah, except
pretty
she's
much.
a gloomy girl instead of going super hot.
He's infatuated with these sluts who actually don't like him, but he's ignoring the glasses girl who like looks nerdy but actually does like him. And he'll regret it later.
Yeah, but usually those girls look really hot during college or when they get older.
Well, that'll be like the thing, right? That's what always happens in North American movies. You always fall in love with the nerdy girl, and then at the end of the movie, she gets all like dressed up and she's super smoking hot. And they're like, oh, if only I'd seen beyond the like frumpy clothes and glasses. And yeah, it's stupid. Anyway.
Nerd girls like that, they age like fine wine. You've just got to wait a couple of years.
Oh, there you go. See? There you go. All right. And then finally, we'll end this out. Well, okay, there's one more game based on news. Konosuba is getting a dungeon RPG.
Okay.
like I'm just thinking, like, do I want a dungeon crawl with this as my party? Because seriously, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a soft Dark Soul.
Dark Souls Konosuba edition.
Yeah, but Konosuba is the Dark Souls of anime.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you won't die every time because you're not good at the game. You'll die every time because the character are not good enough.
That's right. Your own teammates betray you. All right.
There's actually one more piece of news about Konosuba related.
Yes. Yeah, and I didn't write it down, so feel free.
There's rumors that came out saying that the Konosuba movie that got announced a couple months ago is going to be adapting Volume 5 of the light novel, so it is technically a direct sequel to the second season.
Oh, I thought it would just be like the that ReZero OVA that's coming out where it's just like a side story kind of thing but that could be interesting. Huh.
And I know everyone who's read the light novel, one of their favorite volumes is Volume 5, so I'm sure people will get hyped for that.
Huh. Well, I guess we'll see. I mean, it's one way for them to keep people sort of along and, build some hype potentially for another season, right?
I hope so.
All right, cool. And then we've got 3 licenses that actually have been announced. First, we have from Soul Press. Now, these are the guys that came out of nowhere earlier this year with 2 titles, Battle Divas and Strongest Gamer, both of which were pretty good. Strongest Gamer, I'd say I liked a bit more than Battle Divas. It had a few more fun mechanics to it. We've been waiting forever for the second volumes of those. They have announced that those are actually happening, coming out. I think they were saying they were hoping to have them out by December. But they did announce 2 new light novel series that they have licensed. One of them is called Why Shouldn't a Detestable Demon Lord Fall in Love? It's an HJ Bunko series. There's only 1 volume out. It's like as brand spanking new as you can get. A story of the romance between an all-powerful demon lord and the matron of an orphanage. And actually, what's interesting is that Steiner from J Novel Club fame is going to be doing the translation for it. Mm-hmm. So at least the translation should be decent. I don't know about the actual contents of the light novel itself, but yeah. And then they also have Redefining the Meta at VR MMO Academy, which apparently has it's also an HJ Bunko. They've got 5 volumes out in Japan. Imagine a school that teaches you how to play games. On top of that, imagine learning on the first day of class that your longtime raiding buddy is actually a girl. This story's got it all.
How you can really define the meta? Come up with something original for once.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen much on it, which is fun. Honestly, I will have to say that I do the countdowns of the top 10 best-selling light novels every week, and I got to say I've never heard of these titles before, so I don't think they are like the greatest sellers of all time, but I don't know about the Detestable Demon Lord. I'll check them both out.
Detestable Demon Lord sounds fun. It's like the demon just walks in and says, guess what, kids? I'm daddy now.
If that actually happens, I will totally pump that novel. I'll be like, dudes, you got to read this book.
That's what I think was going to happen. He's going to marry the chick and just say, guess what, kids? I'm dead now. You have a home now.
And then finally for the news, at least the news that I have, Cross Infinite World licensed a new light novel called The Cursed Princess and the Lucky Knight. After mysterious deaths and misfortune ravages her family and leaves plucky Duchess Sonia de Clare orphaned in the royal abbey, Sonia is forced to take matters into her own hands when the king orders her into an arranged marriage to fulfill her duty as the surviving heiress to the massive Clare fortune. Fully prepared to marry the dashing prince of the kingdom and retake her home, Sonia is only met with disappointment when she discovers who her mysterious groom-to-be is. But when her own castle turns against her in a series of horrifying supernatural phenomena, Sonia quickly discovers the noble knight, Sir Christopher Courtot, is far more capable of protecting his cursed princess than any foppish prince ever could.
I was just half expecting that when they got married, her bad luck would make the prince die, and that's why the people turned on her. And the knight's like, I'll save you, and he accidentally saves her, and he's just like, just keep running, shit will happen, bad stuff's happening, the castle's collapsing around her, but for some reason it's like leading to a path that a knight can get down quickly to safety.
No, it looks more like she gets married off to a knight which she thinks is below her station, but he actually turns out to be a dependable dude. And
he's also lucky because he hasn't died yet.
Well, there is that too, right?
It's like in Desiree where the main character can touch Murray because like everyone else who touches Murray, they either get decapitated.
Oh, well, there you go. Do you guys have anything else that I've missed?
I just figured I'd add, so for Soul Press, they did announce like a service that they're going to launch.
Oh,
it's
yes,
like,
yes.
It's going to have basically light novels, manga, and visual novels. It sounds like they're trying to get like other publishers to like jump on board it. We'll see how that turns out, but basically that's a new venture that they're trying.
It's like what, Hyorin or something like that?
Yeah, it's like Hyo-Urin or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I did take a look at that and I read their post on it. I mean, it sounds like they're trying to be a Steam type service, but focusing on light novels, visual novels, and manga. But right now it's only their own titles. But yeah, it does sound like they're going to open it up to other people. But it's definitely something that'll, like, I don't know how much of a news it is right at this moment. Yeah. But down the road, I mean, who knows? Yeah. What I'm interested to see, though, is if they make it... they've said that they are going to, like, it's launching Windows first, but they said they are trying to build it for Linux and for Mac as well. And if they could actually make a platform that was cross-platform compatible, so I could play visual novels on Mac, because I'll swear to God, there's not that many of them, that could be really good. Like, if they could make it that as a Mac user, you could play any of the light visual novels that they have, that would be pretty good, because Steam, they just basically, most of the visual novels are all PC only, so.
And censored.
They're actually starting to add 18 plus patches. They've kind of changed a little bit of their policies, so maybe some stuff that's on there will start.
Yeah, why would you pay for something? Why would you pay for a visual novel if you're not getting the lewd content?
Well, that's why mostly companies offer patches and stuff like that. So
for the deep lore, what are you talking about?
The deep story, the romance, the love.
I don't give a fuck about the deep lore. I don't give a shit about the CGs.
And just one more little thing. Soul Press also, they posted on their Twitter basically about like a suggestion box. They can now request light novels, manga, and visual novels. So I think that might be the first suggestion box, like major publisher suggestion box for for visual novels. There's a few for light novels, but yeah. So maybe you could add
they're basically following the J novel 7 Seas route.
Yep.
By actually asking their audience what they want.
Yeah, and you can submit multiple suggestions as well. Like you can do, one survey and then jump right back in there and send some more if you really want. If you have a ton of licenses.
I only did it once.
So bio, if you really want it, just make 1,000 accounts and request data live on all of them.
I might actually do that.
Well, you have the time to spare, so.
Well, there you go. I mean, Well, hey, we should, you know what we should do sometime? And this is just, I'm just throwing this out here, but sometime we should really see just how strong our pull with the audience is and just decide on one Japanese license that we are going to flood Seven Seas with one month. Just come up with like 2 titles for the Japanese light novels and just are like, okay, everyone listening to this podcast, go to Seven Seas right now.
That would be
and
good.
request these light novels. Oh my God. And then if it actually worked, well, okay, maybe if it worked, it wouldn't be such a good thing because I'd probably get a swollen ego. I'd be like, we did that.
Just as our
Anyway.
stone, roll influence.
Yes, that's right, eh? Wow. Yeah, don't let power go to my head. Anyway, okay, so that is all of the news. So we will start talking about Goblin Slayer again. A couple of things. First off, yes, a little bit of a warning that we will be mentioning topics such as rape. We will be talking topics such as violence in general. It's kind of impossible at this point to talk about Goblin Slayer without mentioning those things. I mean, it was kind of impossible to begin with.
Well, considering the current AnyTube climate, it's even more imperative that we actually talk about it now and address it and put that monster to bed right now.
Yeah. Now, we also did, and we'll be bringing out a couple of things as we go along as we're talking, but, we had questions because, we are all very lucky in a position where we don't know much about the effects of rape. But Bio actually is friends with a social worker who deals with people who have survived and been victims of. And so we asked her some questions about, things like, media and the depiction of these things and everything else. So just to give us a little bit of background and some more information. So throughout the, as we're sort of discussing things, we may bring those points up. We will look at sort of putting that together so that if you want to read all the stuff that she had to say, because I don't think all of it we'll be able to talk about tonight. But, we'll maybe do that and we'll put a description, a link in the description, either on the website or on the YouTube version of this, so that you can check that all out if you wish. So just obviously maybe we'll start off with the whole controversy bit first, and then we'll move into the more discussions about the actual Goblin Slayer book.
Yeah, I want to get into culture reverse because I love snorting salt. Ugh. That's my cocaine. Give me more salt, man.
So just to frame this up a little bit, and I would like to say for the record, it struck me, and I said this on Twitter. I said, after the first episode came out, and there was such a huge outcry about what it depicted. Yes, there is a rape scene in the first episode of Goblin Slayer. What was depicted, how it was depicted, the fact that Crunchyroll did not have any kind of warning on the episode when it first aired. There is one on there now, a little too late, but, at least they did it eventually. And the fact that the thing, like Kyle, Flyz, you were saying it was like rated PG or something.
Yeah, I actually have screen caps of it on my phone of them having it in PG.
Yeah.
I would love to see what would happen if little Timmy watched Goblin Slayer.
Honestly, yeah. And so, anyway, so obviously a lot of people went into this expecting one thing and obviously got another thing. And I said, I was kind of sad by the fact that we had talked about Goblin Slayer at length. And even when we did the podcast about the new anime that were coming out this season, we talked quite a bit about Goblin Slayer and how it would be interesting to see how the show would handle the scenes of violence, sexual violence and such, because we'd already seen a very different way between the light novel, which we have talked about. The light novel, the particular scene in question, the light novel, all it says is basically that the goblins showed her the mercy that the adventurers would have shown them, and that through her ordeal she screamed for priestess to run. and that's it. The manga is very graphic. In fact, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and we were saying it's borderline hentai. Like it's very graphic. And then the anime, believe it or not, and I mean, if some of you watched it and you were upset by it, believe it or not, it actually falls kind of between the two. It falls like it's more graphic than the light novel, obviously, but it is not as graphic as the manga. And it sounds actually like the show, I only watched the first episode, but it sounds like the show has actually tamed down from that point. Like the manga took every opportunity to show nudity, sexual violence, and everything. Like it took every opportunity with that. And I'll be honest, like I haven't read the manga. Like I saw the first volume of the manga, that was it. And in fact, I almost didn't read the light novel because of the manga. I saw it first. And so the manga is, it's very graphic.
Speaking of the anime actually toning down everything, if you watch the second episode, or like obviously we've all read the light novel, but like in the next few chapters after the opening episode, it opens up with the party of all females warriors who go to the goblin camp, and then they're ambushed and have terrible things done to them and such. And like it's kind of described in the light novel. It's once again borderline porn in the manga, but in the anime version they pretty much completely cut that out, and it just has Goblin Slayer and Priestess showing up at the camp, and the girls are already like pretty much dead without anything being done to them.
Yeah, you're pretty much only seeing like a bird view of the camp, and only seeing like those adventurers dead on the floor. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't as intense as the manga was showing it.
Yeah, I feel like it has less impact too, because they didn't add, at least, them getting attacked. Like I think that would have been, something I would have liked to have seen, animated, just them adventuring in there and getting caught up, just skipping that entirely.
Well, the thing is, it's not like necessary. Like the point is basically that it's another group of adventurer that gets nailed by goblin. Like it just puts the threat of goblin just a little bit higher. But the whole point of this chapter is mainly to focus on Goblin Slayer and Priestess working together, and you see like all these applications that Goblin Slayer can make of like the Priestess magic.
No, I agree that it wasn't necessary. I was just giving it as a pretext so people who haven't watched the anime realize that it does tone things down after the first episode.
Yeah. Well, I think, and I mean, this is something that, we were discussing earlier is, I mean, it was interesting to see the reaction. Like I said, on the one hand, I was disappointed because to me, it really said that there's a lot of people going into these shows that are based on light novels, and light novels that have been out for a while, like Volume 5 came out before the anime premiered. So there's 5 books of this series out. It's not like it just appeared out of nowhere. And it really
8 in Japan.
Well, but I mean, even in English, you know what I mean? Like there was lots of information out there for people to see, what this series was about. And like I said, even on our own podcast, we talked about, hey, heads up, this could be really horrifying, or, maybe they'll tone it down. I don't know. Right. And it seems like we said, like they kind of, in that particular episode, they went a little bit more on the horrifying side. And then it sounds like they've kind of toned it down, dialed it down a bit from there, which I'm, actually kind of glad to hear, because Goblin Slayer's a lot more than just that scene. And I was kind of disappointed that so many people went into it unaware, and then a lot of people were upset by it. And, a lot of people, I think in particular what I was disappointed was that so many people then turned around and were like, they started hating on people who actually liked Goblin Slayer because of that. And like because of that scene, it made them want to hate on other fans that liked Goblin Slayer overall.
Yeah, I want to mention that whole scene and the whole like scene in the cave and stuff like that. Like some people call the series edgy, but I would say it's a bit more realistic because what do you think is going to happen when you go in unprepared? You know, and look, like the party that went in against the goblins, they had no idea what they were facing. They just went in half-assed, half-cocked, and they were also talking very loudly. And if you've ever been in a cave, caves have a tendency to echo, echo, echo. And then goblins here, you know, it's just like, oh yay, free food and sex slaves, yay. What do you think's going to happen?
Well, I think the like the whole thing is that scene, and I mean, a lot of people were like, oh, why does it have to be so graphic? Why does it have to be go so gratuitous? Well, the whole point of that scene, and I mean, even speaking from a writing point of view, right, is to set up the world right away.
It's also to showcase their consequences. Like this is a world where consequences, you know, actions have consequences. They don't just get wished away. You could lose an arm, you could lose an eye. That shit doesn't. You could get raped, or you could get worse. You know, these are consequences, and you have to be careful. Like adventuring isn't all fun and games. It's dangerous, and if you're in a cave,
What you're all saying is pretty much true, but I think that a bigger um, reason behind this might be more to get views. Like in this day and age, like people's attention span are like a goldfish. Like they go from one product to another, and so if you in the first episode you have something that hit hard, like you'll draw attention, whether it's good attention or bad attention, you'll draw attention, and that's what like people that make those media, like that's what they want.
Yeah, actually, I was going to talk a little bit about that. Like for Goblin Slayer, especially the first volume, like when you're introduced like with these characters and you're kind of following them a little bit. Now they're not on the cover and they're not mostly on the inserts, but still you're introduced to them and you kind of think, oh, maybe some of these people will be major characters, and then they kind of shock you. So for me, you know, I was like, oh wow, is this going to be like that kind of series where anybody can die and anything can happen? And I think you know, that idea, like just introducing that early on, and I'm not criticizing it necessarily, but it can give you kind of a false perception about what the series eventually becomes. And then you kind of have to take a step back and then see what the series is, where it's not like you know, all my major characters, any of them can die. They're all going to die, you know, every episode or every, you know, show. It's not that, but you know, I just think the sort of that instant gratification of like something happening that shocks you. You know, you might expect more of that later, and I think, you know, for me, I was like, the first volume, I was like, I don't know if you know, it's supposed to be that kind of series or not, you know?
it's not supposed to be that type of series. It's just supposed to give tension. Like if you're unprepared, it's like playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's like, okay, you walk into a cave, you fail your perception checks. Well, guess what? A bunch of giant spiders have just ambushed your party. Roll dice and see what happens.
One of the arguments that I see that a lot of YouTubers make pertaining to the graphic content is that they say, well, it didn't have to go so far as rape. Like the goblins could have did X insert horrible thing here, and you would have gotten the same reaction out of people, and it would have been fine, and everyone would have gone along with it. But I think that's complete contradictory to your point, because the fact that you're having such a problem with what happened and making a whole controversy of it, literally proves that what Goblin Slayer did, it succeeded in doing. Like, how many anime or manga or light novels do you read or watch that have murder in it and you kind of just like bat an eye because you've seen it a million times and it doesn't really shock you? But then Goblin Slayer comes around and goes the extra mile and has that one taboo in it, and then the whole anime community is in a shitstorm. Like, isn't that like exactly what it tried to do and it succeeded in.
Yeah, I feel
And
like
And that's one of the reasons why I watched anime to begin with, because it was breaking taboos that I didn't normally see. Like, it would talk about rape, it would talk about all these issues, and that's why I like the medium. I mean, that's why majority of people like the medium. I mean, I don't speak for everyone, but that's why I like the medium. I mean, what do you expect? It's anime. It does whatever the fuck it wants.
yeah,
Like, what did you?
I think sexual violence just in general though, it is one of the most like visceral kind of things. Like whenever I'm in a like
Yeah.
reading group, that's like the one thing where it's like it will break some people and they will not read the rest of a book that has some kind of high level of like sexual violence at some point in it. Some people drop it, they just can't deal with it. So you know it just is so visceral. Yeah.
and that's fine. Like, people could prefer whatever they want, but the thing is that people try to paint it as like it's supposed to be titillizing when it clearly isn't, and it clearly shows the victim is in distraught, and then it shows the main character coming in and literally murdering all of the rapists. But like, people portray it as it's trying to get your rocks off and to like titilize the viewer, which it clearly wasn't trying to do.
Unless you're some sort of psychopath or sadist, then no.
Okay, so what Bio's friend wrote for us, like there's to one of the question, basically, she said that the impact a scene like this can have in entertainment media. Well, it really depends on the age of the targeted group of said media, and also like the impact also depends on the content warning, which in this case, well, didn't have any, and also like depends also on the portrayal. Like she said, in no way this is supposed to be an humorous, or it's not humorous and it's not educational, so it's like how people will take it really depends on if they're ready to see it or not. And also as to this whole debate, she said that like it's an endless debate. Like you can say that a specific scene is portrayed like realistically and like another not, but like there's no justification, and there's so much like factors and opinion in there. So basically it's what's going on right now. Like people are pointing fingers, like people are some are defending like the series, or some are accusing other people, so some are accusing like the other, and like it's an endless debate that won't end. Like there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, there's like only endless discussion.
Well, I think that, you know, we were talking earlier, and one of the things that I said I thought was important to, in terms of taking a look at Goblin Slayer, and we're lucky because a lot of light novel authors, we never get interviews with them in English. We have no idea what their inspiration was, or what they really, you know, what they really were thinking about when they were writing their books. I mean, we get it sometimes in the afterwards when, if they write it, but not always. In the case of Goblin Slayer, we have a number of interviews with the author, and he has made it very clear that for him, Goblin Slayer was modeled very much after the Punisher and after these kind of vigilante type characters. And the point that I've made previously is that we have a situation where goblins basically represent the low level street crime, or the crimes that are very underreported and very under investigated. You know, and if we look at our real world, I mean, you know, if you look at the statistics on rape, the number of rapes that are reported compared to the number of women who state that they have been sexually assaulted is shockingly low. The number that are actually prosecuted and successfully convicted based on reports is pretty shockingly low. Things like petty theft and all that kind of stuff, those are things that we never really hear about, and that even police forces don't dedicate a lot of manpower to, because there's other bigger problems. And if you look at Goblin Slayer, that is a vigilante, basically. Goblin Slayer is that guy who had his life ruined by these petty thugs, by these street criminals. And so he's determined to make sure that no one else has that loss. Nobody else suffers the way that he suffered. Nobody else is subjected to that. And so he becomes this one-man army, basically, against these things that nobody else wants to be bothered with or that people underestimate. And to me, like, as much as, yes, we could say that the first episode was, shock value, it was done to get people to watch and stuff like that. I really think that it's, if you look at it from like a writing point of view, it is this perfect moment because it is shocking and it is horrifying, but you immediately understand why Goblin Slayer wants to kill goblins. You immediately, especially when you find out his backstory, you immediately understand why he doesn't give a crap about dragons and demons and, high-level spirits and all this kind of stuff that all the other adventurers want to get famous for. All he cares about is eliminating these creatures that basically have ruined everything. And you understand why. You're like, I get it.
And I kind of relate it to like D&D again. Like a Goblin Slayer is basically like a fighter, dual class, or a ranger. Like his favorite prey is goblins. He just kills goblins, and he's also in his background is folk hero. People love him. The common man love him because guess what? Because like when he goes and stops it, because goblins, out like crops, they attack villages, they kidnap adventurers and stuff like that. And when Goblin Slayer comes down and brings down the hammer, he's saving people, he's helping. And they even mention in the books, and I'm stumbling a bit, but they even mention in the books that he's almost like worshipped as like an angel almost. Like he's almost like this angel of vengeance. Like goblins are attacking this village, and up on the hill they see a figure walk, and it's like it's the Goblin Slayer, and they wave their flags of morale, and they keep pushing back the goblins because their savior is here, and they're inspired by his very presence. And then he comes down like an angel, flowing down arrows of light and showing his glowing sword cutting through goblins, and the goblin hordes.
Well, it's pretty much why he's silver rank.
And for the people who also question why, if goblins are clearly a huge threat, why the higher ranked adventurers don't do anything about it, you have to realize that goblins only really are a problem on the frontier, which is like the edge of the country. So they only attack small, poor farms, and these poor farms, clearly shown in the second or third episode, I think the third episode of the anime, where it shows the village chief going to the guild girl and begging her to send adventurers to help stop these goblins. And she's like, okay, what payment would you like to put up? And he puts up like change out of his pocket. And like when you're a high level adventurer, you don't want to do the jobs where you get no reward for it, because like you feel like you've climbed the ranks high enough where you're like you're too high of a rank to do like vigilante work or like low level crimes. Like you'd rather be the cliched protagonist, isekai protagonist who fights the demon lord and saves the capital and everything. So like nobody sees it as worth their time.
Yeah, and also, like, a majority of these farmers are just, like, starting out. Like, give it, like, another 30 or 20 years. They will eventually have enough money to maybe build some fences, maybe get some security. But right now, these guys are on the frontier. It's like, when the pilgrims came to America, they were just starting out, They didn't have much. And, Goblin Slayer is almost like the savior because he's almost like he'll work for anything. If you give him a bronze coin, fuck it, he'll still go and kill goblins and burn down their mountain. He doesn't care. If long as there's goblins, he'll go kill them for no matter the price.
I'm pretty sure he would just do it for free.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing, right? Is that it's that return. I mean, it sounds terrible to maybe, trivialize it this way, but it's return on investment. Even if as an adventurer, you know that goblins can be really dangerous, if you're being offered virtually nothing and you're going to risk yourself, you're not going to. You're going to be like, why? Like they've pretty much shown that adventurers aren't necessarily virtuous people in this world. I mean, they are people that are doing it for the money, for the fame, for the glory. In one of the
Actually,
books,
just in the latest episode, I'm just going to use that because I don't know where that scene is in the light novel. But in the latest episode, the guild girl says, adventurers come in all stripes, from lawful good to chaotic evil. And
yeah,
that's where it comes the whole D&D thing. Like, there's a whole slew of adventurers. Like, some people do it for justice, others do it for the lols, some do it because they have freedom in their hearts, and some people do it because, they just want to spread goodness. And then you got other people who do it for selfish reasons, like that halfling gnome person who got punished or whatever. I forgot his race name, and I don't give a shit because he's irrelevant, but,
Well, we'll get to it when we get to volume 2 later, because technically that adapted volume 2.
yeah.
But
Well,
the newest episode was really weird.
Well, I think that, it's, well, and that's the whole point, right? Is that, for Goblin Slayer, he will do it for free. Because for him, the reward isn't the money. The reward is killing goblins. The reward is preventing any other village from suffering the way his village suffered from, yeah, and that's it. And well, but it's not even evil general. It's his evil, right? It's the evil that was
it's
committed to him.
how about this, for example? Like, for example, I got a vision that you, Justice, you're about to get shot and you died, and I stopped that from happening. I feel good about it because I prevented you from dying when you would have. It's kind of like that. Like, he's preventing something from bad from happening before it even happens. So by eradicating the goblins, it prevents another rape, it prevents another raid. And, these raids don't just affect the farmers, they affect the entire economy or the people because, those crops go somewhere. People need to be fed. That it's costing money to fix up these farms. It's costing money to hire new farmhands. I mean, these goblins are a massive economic and resource problem.
But again, right? It's because, and again, like that just shows, it again, right? Like I keep thinking about it in terms of even our own world. I'm like, until that level crime really is in your face, if you live a fairly, privileged existence, you don't see it, right? Until it invades your neighborhood, it's not really your problem. It's somebody else's problem. In terms of the source material that really inspired him, so we have Dungeons and Dragons, obviously. We'll talk more about that, but I mean, obviously tabletop RPG is a huge influence on Goblin Slayer. And then like I said, Punisher. So I mean, it's just that, right? It is a fantasy world, but he has made the goblins in it essentially like street level thugs that commit crimes that most of society in our world will turn a blind eye to. But when you have it happen to you, you become, if you're like Goblin Slayer, and I mean, let's face it, Goblin Slayer, we can talk at length about Goblin Slayer himself, how he is probably very psychologically traumatized and probably suffers from a host of, mental health problems because of what he's gone through and what he is now pushing himself to continue to go through. And one of the things about this series that I liked was kind of that character journey of him, where when he first meets Priestess, he is totally cold. He has no idea how people are supposed to even act towards one another because it's completely out of his mind. He doesn't even care about other human beings other than the fact that they are the enemies of goblins, so therefore they're good.
Yeah, he cares about the mission. It doesn't matter. Like, collateral damage, who cares? Like, say someone died, I killed these goblins and I saved the majority. That's all that matters. And I actually like the thing where he becomes more human and he starts interacting more, because there are some days when there are no goblins and Goblin Slayer's just like, well, I've sharpened my weapon, I've done my daily routine, still no goblins, what am I going to do now? I literally have nothing to do, I've done everything I need to do today. Like, what to do? And, you find him interacting with, high elf archer or dwarf shaman or cowgirl or guild girl, he's finding new things to do. Like, it just doesn't have to be always about goblins.
Well, like, near the latter half of the first volume, like, you remember how, High Elf Archer makes it, like, her duty to be like, I'm gonna take him on a real adventure and, like, show him the joy of being an adventurer, try to get him out of his rut of just being, I gotta kill goblins and that's all I'm gonna do. So it makes her like it gives the story like a goal to reach to progress through. I think the whole point of the series, the whole story of the series is taking Goblin Slayer and pretty much humanizing him over time to the point where like he's less traumatized.
I like that aspect about him, and you see a hint of that, like in the end of Volume 1, he takes off his helmet to show everyone what he looks like. Now, he would have never... Spoilers! He takes off his helmet and shows people what he looks like. Now, the only person who knows what he looks like is that shop owner where he buys his weapons from, and Cowgirl. No one else knows what he looks like. And he just takes it off, he has his helmet off, he still is normal, and then he puts it back on. Because, like, I think Priestess or someone asked him to do it, and he decided they were partying and stuff. He says, like, why not? And he just, like, takes off his helmet.
Wasn't that what one of them asked for payment for helping out with the farm?
Yeah, because like he asked a favor of every adventurer, and everyone asked a reward, and at the very end, like Priestess was the only one that didn't ask anything because she kind of come like she's kind of a set and like she's his partner, and she comes to him and just said like my reward, I want you to take off your helm, and he said, why not?
Well, show me what you look like. We're partners. Come on, you trust me. And he does. He takes it off.
The first volume in particular, I think the first volume really grabbed me because of, that is like a big character journey for him, and it progresses throughout the series. But in the first volume, you have this adventurer Goblin Slayer who is this one-man show who is, all about killing goblins. He then takes on Priestess, and then of course he joins up with High Elf Archer, Lizard Shaman, Dwarf Shaman, Lizard Priest. He joins up with them, and he has to learn to actually at one point ask people for help, which is completely alien to him. You see this transformation of him becoming more of a functioning human being. And I kind of feel like the series, because the series brings into play, and I don't know whether the anime has touched on this, but the series does bring into play the whole thing about gods and gods playing games. And that some of these dungeons and some of these, even goblins themselves, are tools that some of the gods are using to basically play their cruel or whatever kind of games on human beings, right, to entertain themselves.
Well, basically, the world of Goblin Slayer is basically just like a D&D game. They're just rolling the dice to see what happens.
Well, yeah, yes, exactly. It is. It's like D&D on all levels. It's D&D on the story level with Goblin Slayer, but then it is. It's almost like the gods themselves are the players throwing dice. Like that's where the whole he doesn't let anyone throw the dice or whatever it is, the tagline from the series. And basically it's building this idea that Goblin Slayer is an anomaly, that even the gods aren't exactly sure what he's going to do.
They can't roll the dice for him. It's just like, okay, roll a D100, what Goblin Slayer's going to do today. And all the options is kill goblins.
Well, and I think and I kind of wonder if that's kind of where this is going, that, we've started off with this character who was very much in his own world, very stuck in himself. And now as he's being introduced to these other characters and they're broadening his horizons, they're, sort of almost instructing him how to be a human being in some ways, that as it broadens his horizons, I kind of wonder if the scope of the series will get bigger and we'll see Goblin Slayer playing a larger role in the world on large. I mean, you get that hint, right? You get that feeling in certain volumes, like...
Yeah, it's not like he's against killing other things, because he did kill that ogre, and very skillfully, I might add.
That's not a goblin.
Yeah, it's not like he's against, like, oh, not a goblin, avoid. No, as long as it involves, like, it's almost like before he would just go solely on goblin quests, but now if it involves goblins, he will tag along. So say, for example, we need to slay the demon lord. Not interested, but there's goblins. Okay, I'll come. I'll go slay him. It's almost like they're trying to twist it to convince him to get on more adventures with them, because, I mean, Because Goblin Slayer is basically a person. All he knows is how to fight. He's like a Black Ops unit. He's like a Black Ops soldier coming back from the field, coming back home for the first time. Like all he knows is war. And now you're going to teach him that it's not always war. You've got to learn how. You've got to like retrain him how to be a civilian again. And that's kind of another thing. That's kind of what I relate to like Goblin Slayer. Like he's almost like a warrior who doesn't know how to come back home. It's always war. War's on.
Well, and that's why he never takes off his helmet, right? Because he's like, even in a city, you never know when someone might attack you.
One of the scenes that the anime has that has like really funny comedic timing is in the latest episode, Goblin Slayer is about to leave the guild house, and Guild Girl's like, "Oh, Goblin Slayer!" It's like she calls out to him, and she's like, "I got a quest for you," and he's like, "Goblins," and that's like all he says, and she's like, not really," and then before she even has time to finish what she's saying, he's already like halfway out the door because he doesn't even want to hear it.
The other
not interested.
The other funny one was when he was with Guild Girl at the front of the desk, and she had just been talking to the three, Dwarf Shaman, the Elf, and Lizard Priest, and she's like, something about goblins. Oh, Goblin Slayer. Look here, these people. And then he's like, goblins? Are you goblins?
Yeah, he goes to the elf girl. He's like, "Who are you? Are you a goblin?" And she's like, "What? No." Like,
yeah. Also, the whole thing about that scene is that a lot actually, if you like, people other than villagers have heard of Goblin Slayer. They have different names for Goblin Slayer as well. Like they call him Orc Bong or whatever the fuck.
Or the
beard cutter.
Beard cutter, Orc Bulk. And like there's also well, and like that's what we're saying, like, you know, and actually, like you said, Bio, you're totally on point, is that this is a character who is like basically has PTSD. The war never ends for him. It doesn't matter where he is. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. That's why he's always in his armor. That's why he's always got his helmet on. That's why every single day he wakes up and he reinforces the fortifications at the farm where Cowgirl lives and her uncle lives. That's why every day he checks all of his weapons and everything else. And because the war for him is always on, and at any moment he's going to go back into it. What I actually like about it, I mean, you see in later episodes, like later volumes of the light novels where, I don't want to spoil anything, but, later volumes, you do see Goblin Slayer branch out a little bit. And like you said, when he fights that orc, you do realize that, like, even though Goblin Slayer has focused so much on eliminating goblins, it has made him incredibly resourceful. And very careful and thorough and methodical. Like a lot of the things that he has learned to deal with goblins actually make him a really great adventurer, regardless of what he's going after.
Well, he's a specialist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, he's a ranger. He gets +2 damage wherever he fights goblins.
True story. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, like, and that was the thing, like, I was never a fan of, the sexual violence, at least in Goblin Slayer, the light novel. And like I said, it is certainly not in any way played for titillation. It is certainly in no way, glorified or, it's not even, like I said, like for the most part, it's not even graphic. Like the author, for the most part, will cut away and not give you any kind of, won't entertain that kind of stuff. Like it's basically just like, what happened to her, I won't write here. And that's the end of it. Moves on, right?
Like when I'm reading the story, I was just like, I don't care about this rape. Just get back to the killing goblins. That's all I care about.
Well, I think it's just because, once you like, if you get past those things, and again, like, I don't know how good a job the anime is doing on this, but the light novels themselves, I find the characters actually really enjoyable. Like there is such, like, especially when like High Elf Archer, Lizard Priest and the Dwarf Shaman get into it. I mean, there's a great dynamic between those 5 characters, those 3 plus Priestess and Goblin Slayer. Like there's a really good dynamic between those characters, and I like them. I like their dynamic, and I like
the dynamic out because it feels like a D&D party. Like, it feels like, you got your healer, you got your fighter, you all get along, you all get together and go on a quest. It's like, oh, yeah, you remember that time when we did that? Yeah, you remember that time we did that? It's like, yeah, I got your back. It's almost like, it takes me back to those good old days of dungeon. It's like a dungeon crawl. And I love how they captured, and I love how they captured it. Like, there's a lot of team dynamic, and even though they have different beliefs or cultures or even species that have historically warred each other, they're still good friends. Like, it's like, I've got your back, you've got mine, we share the loot.
Yeah. Well, but you're absolutely right. Like, I mean,
Share the loot.
well,
In a D&D game, you never share the loot.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
but like,
I quote
Take it out
unquote
for
share the
yourself.
loot. I just sort of hand their share.
Well, at least with my friend, we don't share the loot.
Well,
like,
guess what? When you get caught doing that, you end up like that midget from Volume 2 who gets demoted and run out of town.
He was chaotic evil. I mean, look at his face.
Yeah, we're not chaotic evil. We're just players.
well, but I mean, nonetheless, though, like, I mean, that was the thing that got me into the series. That's why I liked the series, was because I found I liked the characters. I liked how the characters interacted. I liked how Goblin Slayer as a main character, I could see his progression. I could see this very capable yet very emotionally damaged man who was slowly being kind of brought out of his shell because of the people around him. And that's why I liked the series. That's why I continue to like the series. And, and I guess that's part of the reason why I tried very hard not to get too defensive when everybody went on the warpath about the anime, because I was kind of like, well, part of me should have expected this. I mean, I did say if it was graphic, it would probably cause issues. I think I said that actually right out. But at the same time, like I said, when you start seeing YouTubers that are obviously just trying to fan the flames for the sake of getting views, when you see when you see and you see a lot of people who have a valid point that, like I was saying to you guys before, like if you look at the art style of Goblin Slayer, because we were talking about how, there have been lots of anime that have had sexual violence, extreme violence, and nobody has said anything about it. And then you have Goblin Slayer all of a sudden come out and everybody's angry and, upset. And I really do. I think it has a lot to do with the art style.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with the fact that, like, Priestess is like this super cute moe girl, right? And Elf Archer is cute, and even like Dwarf Shaman's is drawn like, everybody's friendly grandpa, and like even Lizard Priest doesn't look scary, and like I don't think people saw that artwork and thought to themselves, oh, this is totally going to have like extreme violence and rape and all sorts of stuff in it that is going to bother me. Like, I think most people looked at it and they're like, okay, well, this is going to be a bit of a dungeon crawler and they're going to kill goblins. Okay.
Yeah, they were expecting fluffy stuff, and then like it hit them like a 6-ton truck.
Like, I kind of was talking with somebody in the comments last week about like Madoka Magica. They kind of brought that up, and how like that was a series that I think was even presented as like, oh, this is a light, fluffy series. And then they hit you with episode 3. I don't know if you guys have all seen that, but
Yeah.
but they really slam you with episode 3.
Goes off the
And
head.
so it kind of did that thing. And it didn't have a warning or a warning label. And I was just kind of curious if, like, is that valid? Like, do we have to be warned ahead of time just because the art style is light and fluffy? And does that kind of take away too if you're warned ahead of time?
We don't have to be warned, because what's the point of watching a story if you know what happens?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I read Goblin Slayer, I don't want to know these plot points. I want to read them and experience them myself.
Yeah.
Like, when
So
I watched
well,
Madoka Magica, when I actually watched it and like sat down and watched it, when I first watched it, I didn't want to know that. I just wanted to see the plot, see it as it is. It's just like, okay, some girl got her head bitten off. Okay, I didn't expect that. All right, what's going to happen next? like, I don't want you to tell, like, when I'm watching a series, I don't want you to tell me what's going to happen, because then it makes it boring. And that you ever make it.
I think that's a valid way to watch or experience something too. But like, I know there are people that want a warning, but there's also people that are going to watch stuff blind. And you just have to, if you are going to do that, you just have to be prepared that you might see something you don't like in a series. So
yeah, well, I like it when a series surprises me, because I've watched like over like 700 shows, and when something surprises me, it's like, yay! You did not dare ever bore me, series. This is now I'm interested. Now I like it. But if I already know what's going to happen, then I'm just like, oh, I saw that coming. Like, oh, I could have predicted that. Like, that's so fucking boring. Who wants to like watch a series but know what's going to fucking happen?
I'm just gonna make a point, like something that your friend wrote in the answer to our question. Like it's like especially with like sexual violence, like there needs to be a warning before, because scenes like that, some people might just brush it off, but other people will be offense, and other people, well, victim of past sexual violence will. There's a chance that they can be re-traumatized, or that they can find the thing disrespectful. So, like for those people, like you need to at least put up a warning.
Okay, then put up an M rating and say this series contains views of sexual violence and etc. So you have an idea, but you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it would have been better to have like a black screen like at the start with whatever that was, like a warning label. And then so people that want to look at that can, but you're not like staring at the actual first scene of the anime with this warning plastered over it that says blah, blah, blah. Like, I think if people want, if people want some warning, you could put something up at the beginning, but you don't have to put it over the anime that I'm watching, so I'm kind of spoiled. So that's kind of how I would do it, but I definitely think it's valid to have a warning. I just think it's difficult to warn but also not spoil.
Well, again, I think it depends on the content and what you're realistically setting people up for, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, when you say a series is called Goblin Slayer, I expect there to be death and violence. Mm-hmm. Slayer, hello, he's going to kill stuff, okay, right? But that doesn't.
Well, not really. Well, if you look at the 90s,
Slayer killed 100 demons. On the second
if you look at the 90s,
blood.
Oh, okay.
If you look at the 90 anime Slayers,
okay, but I'm just saying, but he's specifically saying Goblin Slayer, like that's not just like it's our point. Cool name of our metal band. It's like I'm gonna kill friggin' goblins,
Well, I also think I don't think this is my place to say since I'm not that old, but I think our generation's a little too sensitive since if people actually go out and watch like OVAs from like the 80s and early 90s, they had really grotesque stuff in it, and there were a lot of like violence and like sexual themes and a lot of
Ninja Scroll,
Legend of the Overfiend.
Like, I think people need to go out and like see, like, broaden their horizons, and they'll see that like cases like Goblin Slayer really aren't that rare.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched a lot of stuff in the 90s and 80s and even 70s. Like, to me, Goblin Slayer is just like, okay, rape, meh. I already read it in the manga and light novel, so I wasn't really that shocked. It's just like, yeah, I've seen better and I've seen worse.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
also
reality, but that's the thing. You knew what to expect.
One thing that's extremely ironic, though, is that after all this controversy happened, if anyone has a Mal, Goblin Slayer became the most popular series in the season after all the controversy.
Everyone loves controversy, man. It's the greatest drug you ever take, man. It's like salt.
Like I said earlier, like speak of it in good, speak of it in bad, but speak of it, and that's what people are doing. Like they hear of it, they go watch it. That's why it's popular.
So like all these YouTubers made their videos to like tell everyone this is a terrible series, and then everyone else was like, well, guess I'm gonna watch the series now.
Yeah, people are curious. Like, if there's an accident on the road, like, you're sure that people will stop or slow down to look. It's the same same concept.
Well,
Yeah, and I flip those people off. But that's besides the point.
but I mean, like here, but okay, but I mean, speaking as somebody who does YouTube, and I mean, I don't okay, and like because of what I do, I don't clickbait crap because I don't make those kind of videos. But I mean, really, like YouTube, you have a lot of people. Like, I mean, I think honestly, like most people know that if I want to cause a hornet's nest, I hate something. You know, you don't often get views because you say, "Oh, I really liked this." If you want to get, if you really like, if you want to get people to watch your video, Sword Art Online sucks. You know, like
Oh god.
Goblin Slayer. If you like Goblin Slayer, you're a rapist monster, and you know, like if you say,
or about
you're a
comparing
rape
goblins
apologist.
to Jews, or that Goblin Slayer, some sort of like Deus Vult white supremacist show, made in Japan.
like, but I mean, nonetheless, it doesn't like. Regardless, the thing is that you take a look at the anime YouTube community, and a lot of it, I mean, a lot of it is really based on that idea of trying to get people to watch, right? And whether it be controversy or whether it be, oh, let's just fire out a video quick because this series has a lot of people talking, it doesn't really matter, right? All that matters is, did people click on it? Did people view it? Did I get subscribers? That's all that matters. And that's why I kind of wanted us to talk tonight, because I was like, I don't, as much as I want people to listen to our podcast, I don't feel the need to try and be ridiculously sensationalize it, like.
Well, I kind of separate like YouTubers in two camps, like content creator as a general. Like you have those that does it for entertainment and those that does it for information. So your channel is a bit more informative than entertaining.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It is a totally different thing.
And as a general, like entertainment will get you more views because people sometimes they just want to brush off like stress from work, or they want something that they can maybe listen while doing other stuff. So entertainment is easier to watch and people will watch it more than informative stuff that you need to like sit down and listen.
The thing is with YouTubers is that like a lot of them, especially the popular ones, have this holier than thou like ego when they give like out points as if like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
but
I know exactly
coming
what
from
you're
all of
talking
us
about.
who
It's
have actually
showbiz.
coming from all of us
It's
who have
show
actually
business.
read the source material, like we know they're full of shit.
Yeah, also, like, those people are usually what I call, like, the pseudo-analysts or, like, overthinkers, but, like, the thing of them is that, like, they always use all these big words and long-ed sentences. It's like, look how smart I am, and every time they do a video, as they're speaking, it's almost like they're jerking themselves off. It's like, look how smart I am, look at these plebs listening to my knowledge, look how smart I am. And really, it's almost like they're lecturing you. Like, when I, like, Justice, when I came to your channel, it didn't feel like I was being lectured. It was almost like I was asking you a question and you're just informing me on it. Like, you're just saying, like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And, like, what many pseudo-analysts seem to confuse is they actually think that, sounding smart means that your content is good. No, it doesn't. It just makes you sound like a pretentious prick if you actually think that you're better than everyone else. Like, there's another reviewer that I quite like. He went by the name of Shintai. I think he goes by Daniel now, but, like, with his content, he's very informative, and he actually makes his points are solid, his analysis is methodical and slow, and, he gets his point across. But what's also great about it is that, like, it doesn't feel like he's talking down to you. It just feels like he's just having a general conversation and he is telling you his thoughts on a specific subject. Like, he's just talking about it. And you're like, wow, I really get your point. I really understand. I like this video. I like your logic. You sound reasonable. Well, with some of these other people, they're going like, oh, so the pretentious blah, 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 dichotomy, blah, 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 left of the blah, 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 blah. And, like, for some of these people's videos, like, the amount of mental gymnastics I have to do to even understand is, like, ridiculous. I mean, 10 minutes for a single point? Fuck you. I don't have that time.
And one thing that like when someone tries to criticize like an anime series and they're like, you ask them, oh, did you read the source material? And they always point out, oh, well, I read the translated parts of the manga, and like I always shake my head because like it's like people forget that light novels exist, and that when the light novel is the original source, using specifically the manga as like your source to like prove your point doesn't really work, because a lot of the times manga adaptations of light novels change things, make the events completely different, or like they skip out on certain events, or they make the tone completely different, like in the case of Goblin Slayer being it more more
Right.
titillating
Like,
than the light
Well,
novel.
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
an
well, Flyz,
adaptation.
let me translate this for you. Let me just break it down for you. Oh, how dare you question me? I read the manga. How dare you make me look up a Google search? How dare you, you ignorant pleb? I read the
How
Oxford
dare I make you
Dictionary.
read a book?
Yeah.
How dare I make you read a book instead of just look at pictures?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the attitude they're going with. They're not saying it outright, but that's what they're thinking. They're like, "Oh, how dare you question me?" It's like, but like these people are talking down to you. They're like talking from up high, and you're just saying from below, "You're full of shit."
Well, I think too that there's, and I mean, okay, this is self-serving and biased. Okay, I admit it, but I find sometimes too though is that I kind of wonder sometimes, like, you know, you pay $10 a month for Crunchyroll. Well, it's less than that, but whatever. Okay, let's just round it up. So you spend $10 a month in Crunchyroll. You can review hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes of anime for your $10, and then you're going to compare it to the manga, which you looked at some illegal download site, and you know that's the extent of what you do. Then when I say to you, you know, there's a light novel and it's officially available in English, I'm asking you to spend $20 to buy that book and to spend the additional time it takes to actually read it. And I think sometimes I kind of wonder if that's the part of the problem too, is that it's like, you know, a lot of these guys are doing stuff on the cheap. I mean, they're taking you look at their screen caps. I mean, they're even screen capping it off of Crunchyroll. Like,
It's not really a reason of being cheap on money. It's a reason of being cheap on time.
well, I think it's
like
both. Yeah.
Nowadays people, like I said earlier, like they have an attention span of a goldfish. Like I see it all the time at work. Like I work in an hotel. I see people that they ask you a question, and like you haven't even started answering and they're already like 5 meters away. Like they don't wait for the answer. And thing with books is the same thing. Like it's way easier to skip through a manga, see pretty picture, and then watch an anime where you're kind of fed those picture on a silver platter than to take the time and read a book. It's way longer, but in my opinion, it's a lot more satisfying. But not everyone will sit down and read a book.
Oh no, you're right.
Yeah, when you're sitting down making a video saying like this is gospel, yeah, you're such a smart analyst of, you know, peeling back the layers of the medium when you can't even read the fucking source material, you lazy prick.
Well, the thing is, they don't really have to. Like, what they want is do an analysis of the anime. They don't have to read the source material.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
if they blindly compare it to like another adaptation, then that's their fault. Like they're not doing a good job of researching.
Yeah.
But if they're just analyzing just a particular media, that's fine.
Yeah, well, I think that's, and I guess that is one of the reasons why I was like, okay, we should talk about Goblin Slayer. I mean, we were going to talk about it anyway because we were like, it's a good time because the anime is coming. This was before even the controversy hit. Mm-hmm. We were like, oh, we'll have to talk about Goblin Slayer soon because the anime is coming, and most of us like the light novel and everything else. And then when this came out and then all of this stuff was happening and people were saying all these things and people were like, oh, you can't like Goblin Slayer unless you're a deviant or I don't know, whatever, all those stupid things. To me, I was kind of like,
or I am a deviant.
Well, okay, maybe, but I mean, but the thing to me is that I guess I took a bit of offense to it because I was like, you know what? This was like, and this is where you're talking about source material. I'm like, the light novel isn't like this, you know, and the light novel isn't this, you know, you watched 23 minutes of an episode of anime and that was all you had of Goblin Slayer. I read a 300-page novel which encompassed probably about half of the season. And God knows the way that they do adaptations, it probably
Bitch, I read
contained
5
even more.
volumes.
Well, but I'm just saying, in comparison to what's available anime wise, like you even if I've read one book, I already have way more content under my belt than someone who's only seen the first episode of the anime. And it kind of felt to me like, I was like, if I say I like Goblin Slayer, I really have to, I feel now like I need to quantify that. I need to qualify it and say, I really like Goblin Slayer, the light novel.
Oh shit!
It's almost like you got to justify your own tastes and hobbies. Like, I like Goblin Slayer because it reminds me of Doom and D&D. Like, that's basically it. It's like a cool, really cool show about a man trying to find, get a speck of humanity back, and it's like it's got references to D&D, and it's him killing goblins and maybe a few miscellaneous stuff. There's character interaction. The art is nice. There's some fan service, and then there's other stuff that we will not talk about. But it's just like, I like this. This is fun. I enjoy reading this. I enjoy reading the adventures of Goblin Slayer. What will he get up to next?
Yeah, same for me. Like, I got into it because it really looked like a D&D game I used to play with friends. Like, I really got into that book, and I really urge people that like Dungeon and Dragon or other RPG, like fantasy setting. Like, it's a good book.
Yeah, like, in case anyone knows, like, I love playing tabletop games. In fact, I'm playing a few tabletop games right now, and I love adventure and stuff like that, and it just, like, captures that feeling to me. It's like going off to distant places, finding loot and treasure, fighting goblins, and, making friends, and it's all that fun stuff, and it's like, yeah, I love this. And, like, Goblin Slayer is such a small book. I mean, it's only, like, 300 pages, so, like, in a couple of hours, it's just, like, read it, I'm reading it, a couple of hours later, it's done. It's just like, that was pretty good. I like that. Can't wait for the next volume.
Yo, so I was just hold on. This just came up on my Twitter feed. Does anyone else follow Crunchyroll on Twitter?
No, because they post spoilers.
Oh well, Miles from Crunchyroll just posted because every season they do their post of what's the most popular anime in each state in the United States. Yeah, they just posted this 2 seconds ago, and this is pretty fucking hilarious.
It's a fucking landslide.
Oh,
wow!
Okay,
The United States kill goblins.
And somebody in the comments was like, "Is this like a meme?" And Miles was like, "Unfortunately, it isn't. Why can't it be Zombie Girl Saga, Zombieland Saga?"
Wow. Okay, so I will post this image on the website so that if people are listening on the website, but
for all the viewers who are watching this on YouTube who can't see the image, literally every single state in the United States has Goblin Slayer as the most watched anime.
Yeah.
I want to see Canada.
I think they have Canada. Hold on, I'll find it for you.
Watch, Canada's like Zombieland Saga.
You guys have shit taste.
Zombieland Saga's fucking lit. Shut up.
Hey man.
Oh, wait, here's
For
Canada.
necrophiliacs.
It's more,
well, there is still lots of
more
Goblin
diverse.
Slayer. Lots of
Sword
Goblin
art.
Slayer.
It seems like United States of Goblin Slayer has started to annex Canada's territory, but luckily the Sword Art Online Republic and the JoJo Adventure Republic have decided to annex Canada's territory. Now it's turned into a three-way brawl for Canadian territory.
That's right. It's
but seems like Quebec is Sword Art.
Quebec is Sword Art. It's Goblin Slayer almost everywhere except in the northern territories where JoJo holds sway. But it is.
Yeah, I just wanted to post that because that was.
You also have New Brunswick,
really
who's Sword Art.
Yeah. Wow, that is funny. Yeah. Wow, Goblin Slayer. Holy. Wow, okay. And you know what? And here's the thing. I would love to know, and I mean, they probably do have these stats, but I mean, obviously they put this out after they've had a couple of episodes out. I would love to know what that share was at when the first episode came out compared to now. You know what I mean? Like, they're putting this out.
Retained people.
What I'm wondering is, did the controversy actually drive way more people to watch Goblin Slayer?
Justice,
I'm sure
you should invite a person.
I'm pretty
from
sure
Crunch-
that's the case.
I'm sure it did because I remember when because I always follow Mal and I update it like every single week, and when the first episode aired, the Goblin Slayer had like maybe like maybe 65, 70,000 members, and now it currently has 193,000 members. It's more popular. It's more popular than the new season of Sword Art
Wow.
Online.
Wow. Hey, Justice,
it's
maybe here's a
definitely
cool
caused-
idea. Maybe we should get a person from Crunchyroll in this podcast and have them be like your inside man.
Well, it's just interesting, right? It's interesting to see that, you had that initial controversy, and it certainly doesn't seem to have dampened the popularity of the show any.
I mean, it's basically taken over America, man. It's the Goblin Slayer wave.
Yeah.
Screw the blue and red wave. It's Goblin Slayer for president.
I don't think I have ever seen.
Oh
Well,
my
no,
God.
but seriously though, like they do this every season, and I don't think I have ever once seen a season where the entire country of the United States is one anime. Like I don't think I've ever seen that happen before.
No, I don't believe
Yeah,
so.
me too. I don't think.
So
I'm gonna save this image on my computer so I never lose it.
like that is crazy. I don't think I've ever seen that. Wow. Okay.
Well, there's a first for everything.
Well, you know what? Again, and we talked about this, and again, like I said, I go back because I like to say I warned people, but when we go back to like the podcast where we were talking about the anime, I said that, right? I said it'll be interesting to see what happens, and I was like, if they go graphic like the manga, I hope that people will hang in there because there's so much better stuff in that series that has nothing to do with that. And that, hopefully they'll hang in there for the character development, the relationships, the, growth of Goblin Slayer and everything else. Like and I'm glad to see that's happening.
Yeah, what my only problem with the anime is that the music sucks, because I was hoping for like something from like a heavy metal band. And speaking of relationships, so we sort of talk about like the harem that's building up around Goblin Slayer. Because we didn't mention that
Well,
yet.
it's not really a harem.
Well, I mean, it kind of is.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
With the romance and stuff, obviously I'm still early. I haven't read volume 2. So, or I have read volume 2. I haven't read volume 3 or beyond. So I don't really know.
Neither have
I don't
I.
really know what they're gonna do with that. I don't want major spoilers, but it's interesting that there are so many characters interested in Goblin Slayer, and I don't know. Are they gonna go? Well, I can only speculate. On my own through 2 volumes. Is it gonna go full harem? Is it gonna be like not competition, but somebody's gonna win at the end? I just don't know.
I actually don't think it's going to be competition. I think they're just going to all go for it. I don't think they care. I don't think the society really cares.
Or is he gonna die? Like I don't know. I don't know if that would be his path or whatever. I don't know.
well, from volume 3, you kind of get that. Well, all of the girls are interested in him, but you kind of get the message that he's interested in only one, and you pretty know which one it is.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's almost like and I think Justice said that. It's almost like they want to take care of him. They want him to stop him going out each night and killing goblins. It's almost like you're that wife looking after that drunkard or that retired beat cop. It's like, one more criminal. I got to go out there, and he's just like, no, dear, stay down. Like, just rest. Go play ball for your son. He's like, no, I got to get to work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know what? I think the thing is that, like to me, I take a look at the girls that are in his life, and I think that's why, like, I mean, we can say it's a harem, but it functions differently than your usual, like, all the girls are in love with him and competing with each other or whatever kind of harem. Like, I mean, you have Cowgirl who knows him as he was as a boy and who is basically trying to take care of his day-to-day needs and to try and give him a home, because she realizes that as long as he has a home to come home to, that's going to make a huge difference in keeping his humanity in check, right? You have Priestess, who I kind of feel like she looks more at him, not so much romantically, but more of like a mentor kind of role. Like,
Yeah,
and
that's what I get.
yeah,
from
and that, like, I think part of her wants to feel like, yes, she's saving him, she is showing him that he's capable of more, and that, that there is okay to be merciful or to feel things, but it feels like she's doing that more as a favor to him as opposed to I'm in love with you and I want you to change kind of thing. I get the sense with Alpha Archer, I almost get the sense like she just sees him as a challenge. She's like, you're a nut that I gotta crack. Like, okay, that's probably not a good way to put that.
I think she can't figure him out because she's like 2,000 years old, and there's this one normal human that she doesn't understand, and she's like, God damn it, why are you so complicated? And like Priestess, she's almost like, I need to help this guy because he could go off the deep end.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. And then I think with Guild Girl, like I think Guild Girl and Cowgirl are probably the two that actually have the most honest to goodness affection for him as a person. But I kind of feel like Guild Girl's affection for him is kind of like a rose-colored glasses kind of situation. Like she deals with all these adventurers who are vain and who only want the money and the fame and who think that like because they're a high rank, girls should fall all over them and stuff like that. And then
they think they're hot shit. Basically, it's like, look at me, I'm gold plank, dude. Look at my golden fancy magic spear. It shoots firebolts. Chow.
Yeah, and then there comes this guy who's like he's taking missions that pay like crap, and yet compared to a number of other adventurers, she can actually look and go, I know the lives that he's saved. I know that there's adventurers who have come back into this guild hall only because he went out there for lousy pay, or
because
no pay at all.
Goblin Slayer is a shit kicker. He gets shit done. He's a 1%er. He gets shit done.
Well, and I think it's that she's drawn to him because of that purity of him, right? That, she realizes that there's no like, double talk with him. There's no like, I'm hiding behind 15
motives.
masks. Yeah. Like he is really just simple-minded of, you know what? These things are evil. They hurt people. They do terrible things to people and they have to be stopped. And I don't care what I get paid. I don't care where I have to go. I will do it. And,
like if he has to go kill a goblin on Mount Doom, he'll do it for like 3 bronze coins. It's all business of Goblin Slayer.
Well, that's
it's all business.
Right?
No bullshit. It's just like goblin, go kill.
And I sometimes think that like with Guild Girl, and this is I guess why probably of all of them I don't think she will end up with him. I think with Guild Girl that it's because of how different he is compared to so many other adventurers that she is attracted to him. I think out of all of them, like I said, Cowgirl is the only one who really knows him as a human being, knows what kind of person he was. She knows his history. She obviously has had feelings for him for a very long time, probably since they were kids. And, she's the one who's giving him a home. She's the one who's giving him meals and making sure that he has a bed to sleep in and everything else. And so I think to me, like, that's why, like, yeah, it's a harem because there's all these really cute girls that are surrounding him and they all seem to be interested in him. But I don't think it's really necessarily like a romantic competition type harem that we see in a lot of other stuff.
Another thing I want to mention about, like, Cowgirl is that, like, they have that side story in Volume 4 where that cat girl is trying to make Goblin Slayer eat food, and then she eventually cooks this stew that reminds Goblin Slayer of home because Cowgirl told her the recipe, and he's just like, oh, I actually like this. And then she's like, do you want more? And he's like, no. He just walks off. I got goblins to kill.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like, and that's why, and like, again, right? Like, that's what I mean. Like, that's what I like about the series. Like it does actually have some comedy in it. It does have these different characters that, are fun and interesting and because
it's deadpan humor. It's like, can't kill goblins with that. Fuck that. I'm going off.
Yeah, like, love, I got no use for love until all the goblins are dead, like it's just, to me, because it has all these different pieces, I really like it. And I like the fact that, like we've talked a little bit about Volume 1, not a lot, because it sounds like okay, now guys, I mean, again, I've only watched the first episode, but it sounds to me like what they're kind of doing is, it sounds like they're kind of rearranging things, and they've kind of had part of book one, and now they're doing book two, and it sounds like the end thing that happened, the end battle of book one, is how they're going to end the series. Is that kind of what you guys think?
Basically, what happened was the first 4 episodes follow volume 1 pretty faithfully.
Yeah.
And then like the end of episode 4 is the end of the raid into the cave, and they all get out. And then what's supposed to happen after that is the invasion arc where the goblins attack the farm or whatever. But they basically cut that, and they adapted volume 1 chapter 10, parts of volume 2 chapter 1, and then the first chapter of volume 4, which is with the two adventurers.
Oh yeah, the two kids
who kill rats or whatever in the sewer, and like they go to Goblin Slayer to learn how to.
It was a really good mix.
Well, I knew remember when we were talking about how many they were going to adapt, I was like, they're going to use 4 because the girls get naked. Like, I mean, you want to talk about trappings. Like, I mean, guys, really, like, you know, they don't need to use the rape thing as titillation. There is titillation later on in Goblin Slayer. That is truly done for titillation. I mean, there's no...
Like,
it's
the
fan
mage,
service.
The mage that feels like she has to take a full minute break in between each syllable when she talks.
Well, but I mean, there's also a scene where
I think she's too tired from giving mana to the spear dude. Like, she just keeps on transferring mana like they do in Fate Stay Night. I'm so tired.
Well, Cowgirl, like, I didn't like her voice at first. Like, it really bothered me much more than the witch.
Really, so like, I think that, like, I mean, volume 4 is short stories, right? And I mean, volume 4 has priestess and cowgirl trying on skimpy armor that hardly covers them at all. It has guild girl and elf archer going out and trying on different underwear. So I mean, like, that volume's that short story at the very least, I bet, gets adapted because.
Yeah, and in volume 2 you have like a bathhouse.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yep.
It's coming up.
Well, I mean, and this is what I mean, right? Like, the series, like, you know, and as much as, you know, and as much as like the rape thing, you know, has obviously caused problems, I think that the one thing you can at least say about this series is that it is always horrible. It never makes it positive, glorifies it, or anything. It is always horrible, and it is always done by monsters. And I think that's I think that's, like, in a way, like, if you look at it in that way, it's almost like a powerful statement, you know, like, this is a horrible thing done by monsters, right? Yeah. And like I said, when the series does do fan service, it's completely like your typical fluffy light novel fan service. Like, it's not, you know, they're not it's not gruesome, it's not done in any kind of like horrible way. Like, I mean, yeah, okay, we went to the capital city and look, they've got a bathhouse. Or, you know, let's have a girls' day out, and, you know, for shits and giggles we'll try on the skimpy armor, and let's go shopping for frilly underwear because it'll make us feel girly.
Hey, that armor is very practical because it decreases your stamina drain.
Yeah, well, I really like the reference to the old Dungeon and Dragon edition in that. Like, I think it was who's shopping with Priestess?
It's Cowgirl.
Yeah, well, she says something like, well, wasn't a full set of armor like a chainmail going to obstruct you from casting magic? And she said basically, well, that's a myth. And that pretty much refers to old rules from D&D, like that, like for to stop like magic caster from being too powerful, like they put restriction on weapon and armor that they could use, so they couldn't use metal equipment at all. and it got changed afterward.
I think in 5th edition, I think in 5th edition they still have that, but in 5th edition, if you're a warcaster, then you can wear heavy armor. But aside from that, like, there's just a lot of references to D&D, and I absolutely love it. And I love the shopping because that's everyone's favorite part. Because I make sure when I have a bunch of loot, I always go shopping for stuff I don't actually need, but just more weapons. Because why the hell not?
Well, and even the fact that they like end up playing a tabletop game, right? Like, there's that whole scene where they end up playing like a tabletop game with each other, and they get all into it.
Which class they choose is really representative of everyone. Like the elf, she plays the dwarf.
Yeah. Like it is, and like I said, like, you know, the series, the light novels take time to build the characters. They take time to have these different adventures. You know, just like, like you said, with D&D, I mean, like volume 2 is almost one huge dungeon dive. You know, we get introduced to this whole, and I think that was the other thing too that I found interesting about the second volume. And yes, this is spoilers if you are only watching the anime. But like in volume 2, I mean, they meet this, oh God, what's her name?
Sword
the
Maiden?
Arch.
Oh, no.
No.
Archmaiden?
No, the Archmaiden.
The Archbishop, what do they actually call her? Is it Archmaiden or?
Not Sword Maiden.
The Sword Maiden.
Oh, is it
Sword Maiden? Yes,
Sword Maiden?
Sword Maiden.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I it's been a while since I've read a volume.
No problem.
So
It's fine.
like, so they meet Sword Maiden, and I mean, she is acknowledged to be this incredibly powerful adventurer who's taken on demons and everything else. She's ascended to the level of Archbishop of the capital and all this kind of thing, and yet, because of something that happened with goblins with her, and again, the light novel does not get graphic, but you know what she's talking about. She can't handle fighting goblins. And so the book acknowledges that, you know, this is trauma, that, you know, it's not like, oh, it's something that happens and people just get over it and walk away. Like the book does acknowledge that this is a horrible thing that can scar you forever. And no matter how strong you may become, it's still a demon that haunts you.
There.
Yeah, there is still things that haunt you. There are still things that you won't be able to do because of it.
Yeah, well, in D&D, you have, like in D&D or other role-playing games, you have flaws or weaknesses that your character has to make your character feel more alive and human, and this is hers. You know, like, for example, in one of my campaigns, one of my characters, he has a hatred for the undead. He absolutely despises the things. And if he sees an undead creature, he's going to rush in and kill it, no matter what happens. No matter if it's, like, he's going to do it, because that's his weakness. He just goes in blindly. He sees an undead, I kill it. Like, that's a weakness. That's a character flaw. And it's the same thing of this person. You know, she's afraid of goblins because of what happens, and we don't know exactly how it happened, but we can probably guess that maybe she let her guard down for a split second, and then, well, we all know what happened after that.
Yeah. And you know, she survived. And I mean, and so ultimately she seeks out Goblin Slayer because she feels that the problem they have is goblin related, and she herself is actually afraid to face it.
Also, she's blind.
Well, I mean, she is, but is she? Like, I mean, she is, but clearly it's not handicapping her.
Obviously not, but, you know...
She can obviously talk to and see them, like, in front of her.
She's using spirit sight.
Well, I mean, regardless, but she is obviously able-bodied. Like, it's not truly handicapping her in any way. Because it's not like she walks around with a cane or a guide or anything like that. She acknowledges people. She knows who they are. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's clearly something going on. They don't really address it.
Do you remember if they state in the novel, like when she get hurt to the eyes, like when she lose her sight? Was it when she was attacked before?
I think it was part of the goblin, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think they said the goblins like gouged her eyes out or something like that.
Like they like they clawed at her face or something like that. I don't know.
I vaguely remember it.
Like, I seem to recall there was something about that they had scarred her or they had injured her. Or there was, there was definitely sort of this idea that, you know, that part of why she was wearing that veil over her face had to do with the goblins. So whether it was directly her sight or, also scarring or I don't know, but
Yeah,
And for
because in
scars, I
the-
don't think she should wear that veil because it's just like, who's really going to care?
well,
Yeah, I was wondering because in the fifth episode of the anime, like you have a flashback of an Eric group, and she's over there, and she has a blindfold over her eyes, like facing the demon lord.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, like,
yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Wasn't
Like
too
that happened, I believe. See, I think what it is that actually happened to her earlier on in her career. And then she went on to become stronger after surviving, and then faced off against the demon lord or whatever, and that's how she ascended to her high position. But like
Or
I'm
how
pretty
about
sure.
this? How about this? She lost her old eyes, but she gained magic ones.
Well, obviously
And they
there's
have some
something.
sort of curse, like if you look directly at them, you'll get cursed or something like that. Like maybe that's why she wears that blindfold.
No, I'm pretty sure she says something more specific about her eyesight, but
I'm pretty sure doesn't she take them off at the end of the volume?
yeah, I think that she does. Like there's something like she reveals something about herself about that, right? But yeah, I should have double checked that, but I can't remember.
She at the end of the I read the second volume recently. At the end of the volume, it's pretty much Goblin Slayer waking up after being injured from the battle, and she's like pretty much sleeping with him to like heal him, and she pretty much starts she pretty much starts to confess why she called for him to do this task, and he pretty much catches on like pretty quickly and says it was you were raped, right? And she's pretty much like, wow, you're really perceptive, and like pretty obvious what happened.
well, he's dealing with this all the time, so he has insight on the situation.
Yeah, experience is the best teacher you can ever have.
One thing I don't get is like if they do end up going back to the farm battle at the end of volume 1 for the finale of the anime, is it not kind of awkward since the entirety of volume 2 takes place in another town and they're just gonna rush back for the last episode and there's gonna be like a fight or something? That's why I was confused why they would order it that
there's
way.
there's like what 7 episodes left, and I don't think they'll take all those 7 episodes to cover like volume 2. Like they might rush it in like maybe 3 or 4 episodes.
What I could see them, what I could see them doing is doing episode 2 and then incorporating that slice of life, like, the girls shopping and stuff, as them having returned and they have the money from that mission, and that's why the girls are going out shopping and everything
It's
else.
downtime, man. It's
Yeah.
downtime. They might,
And then they'll do those downtime. They'll do that downtime episode, and then they'll kick into the end of volume 1. That's probably how they'll explain it.
And I'm just scared of one thing, like because in I think it was the last episode, like episode 5, they had like this adventurer examination where Goblin Slayer take the role of observation.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
like this is precursor to what happened in volume 3. So I'm kind of scared that they might rush volume 2 and rush volume 3 and then finish with the end of volume 1.
Oh,
Wait, does volume 3 continue on that
Yeah.
plot point? Because I'm
Yeah, he
pretty,
comes
pretty
back.
sure that the half run, because I haven't read volume.
he
3
comes
yet.
back
It's
for
still on my
vengeance.
shelf.
He comes back. Like, he's like, oh, how dare you embarrass me. And then Goblin
No,
Slayer,
that-
like, smacks, like, just like, punk. He's like, get out of here, kid.
Wait, he doesn't he do that in volume 2 though?
No, that's what he was thinking,
Like-
because he
Oh,
was...
he was so like he was thinking it was gonna happen, and then in the next volume it happens.
Yeah. It was his fear. It was basically like, it was a, like, I took that scene as like a projection of his fear because he could feel how strong Goblin Slayer is. Like, he's thinking of making a move, and he's like, and he looks at Goblin Slayer and realizes, like, oh wait, this dude's like higher level than me. Like, in D&D terms, it's like, oh wait, this dude's got higher level than me. He's gonna go first, and the second I do something, he's already gonna be in front of me, and then again comes the short sword, stab.
Stabby stab. Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Jean-Luc. I hope they don't try to rush through volume 2 and 3. Like that would just be too, I just think that would be too much. I mean, I can see, okay, like given, again, you know, we talk about anime and its penchant for fan service and stuff. There is that outfit that Priestess wears in episode 3, in volume 3. That I could see an animator being like, I want to draw that.
I know the illustration.
That's a very good one.
It looks like it looks like they went from D&D to a Korean RPG.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's
And
now,
the Koreans have some pretty cool ideas. Don't get me wrong.
Now, admittedly, it is a ceremonial outfit. It's not meant to be armor, and she does switch back. But anyway, but yes,
Are you judging their culture, Justice? How insensitive of you.
Oh no, I'm not judging the culture. I'm just saying that, like, you know, the Goblin Slayer doesn't go, you know what? We really just need to have Priestess wear less clothes. Let's change it up for the rest of these series.
And if they do end up rushing the volumes, I'm honestly not going to be surprised because there's been plenty of anime adaptations of light novels that do that already anyway.
Well, that's true. I mean, honestly, I mean, given
Danmachi.
Well, God, yeah.
Well, actually, like when I watched the anime for that first before reading the light novel, and I thought, how the hell can they shove a whole volume into one episode? And then I recently read that volume, and I'm like, not really that much actually happens. So,
well, I mean,
maybe 2 episodes. It could have been.
I still think that there was definitely, like, I mean, given that they covered 5 books, the pacing wasn't as horrible as it could have been, but it could have been better, I think, is what it boils down to.
Yeah, but 5 books,
yeah,
12 episodes.
I mean, like, really, like, if we think about it, I mean, honestly, if Goblin Slayer does cover 3 books, that's probably average. Like, if we take a look at most light novel adaptations, most of them seem to do 3 or 4 volumes in a series, like a single core, right? Like, there's not many. I mean, there's really weird outliers. Like, I know Grimgar, I think, only did 2 volumes, and Roka only did 1, which was really weird, but I mean, it worked. But I mean, still, like, the fact that they only did 1 volume in the entire series was, like, kind of shocking to me, because nobody really does that anymore. So yeah, so I think that it's not unreasonable to think that they would do 3. I was actually really impressed when you guys were talking about saying they might only do 2 based on what you've seen so far. I thought, oh, well, that's actually...
Well, I thought they were going to only do 2 based on from episode 1 to 4, because I thought, I thought they were going to do the fall invasion for episode 5.
Yes, same
and
here.
5 and 6.
And then episodes, 5. I don't think it would have to be 2 episodes, but then I thought they would do the side story for right after the farm, and then in episode 7 onwards go from volume 2 onwards.
Yeah.
I think I'd prefer
So,
that.
they kind of just changed up the order of everything, so I was confused.
Well, I mean, I get from from a narrative standpoint, I kind of understand why they might do the farm invasion last, just because, again, like, when you see the development of Goblin Slayer as a character, him having to actually ask others for help, to admit that he can't handle the goblins alone, is a huge step for him.
It's a huge army, and their leader is like equivalent to a platinum ranked adventurer. Like, he's way out of his league.
Yeah, and like, you know, I can see where, and I mean, like, let's face it, I mean, that battle, like, I mean, you've got a huge army against a huge army. It's like, it really does scream anime, right? Like, I mean, so I can totally see where they'd be like, okay, yeah, this has to be where it ends, because it's just going to be the most spectacular battle scene of the whole series, right? It would be kind of weird to have that big a battle in the middle of the series and then end basically with just the 5 of them in a dungeon being like, yeah, we beat the big boss in the dungeon. Look at us, yeah.
Yeah, it goes from like Lord of the Rings, Return of the Three Kings to Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, right.
You shall not pass, with a bunch of angry orc army and goblins charging at the gates. And the next episode, The misty mountains call to dungeons deep.
It also has the most grotesque part of the series, so I hope anime watchers are ready to watch some meat
You mean
shields.
the meat shields?
Oh yeah, how are they gonna censor those? I'm curious.
Well,
Hey, that's a very valuable tactic. In war, you use fat people as meat shields.
no, that's not
Because
what they
they're
do.
spongy.
Those people weren't fat.
Okay. So, all right. So for the viewers or the listeners, yes, to warn you of what may come on Goblin Slayer later on. The goblins, one of the tactics they use is they strap prisoners to basically boards to basically prevent the adventurers from attacking because,
Well, it's
human
mainly
beings
to
don't kill
confuse.
humans, right? And also, yeah, just to cause, it's like psychological warfare. It's because they figure that people are less likely to attack if they think they're going to injure another human being. It's all those things, right?
Yeah, quite a few armies used that tactic back in the ancient days. They used to strap people to boards, or they used to use their corpses to make barricades, or they used to do all sorts of fun stuff.
Oh, for God's sakes, we still do it. They still use human shields. Why do you think terrorists organize themselves in cities? This is still happening. It's just not as grotesque where you're literally strapping them to pieces of wood.
Yeah, but the secret to get around
it's
to
the same
that is
idea,
not value
right?
human life and open fire.
Jesus.
Problem solved.
Well, in any case, in the light novel, all they basically mention is that they are strapping hostages and using them as shields. In the manga, well, let's just say there was certain artistic liberties taken with what that looked like.
It's fat material.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're right, the anime could still do it and not have it as graphic as what the manga did.
Do we think that the anime is going to follow the manga more closely, going forward? Do we have a sense that they're specifically following the manga, or
No, I think there are a lot between the two.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, again, right? When we talk about that first scene of the first episode, it's very clear that they are still going for a little bit more of the visual shock material of the manga, but they aren't going anywhere near as far as what the manga did. So it's clear that they still have that idea that, we're still a TV series. We're still, we're still not something rated R.
Or an OVA from the 80s. We
well,
can't
yeah.
put all this stuff in,
Yeah.
Dark City or Devilman.
Yeah, well, this is it, right? It's...
I just thought of something.
What?
Really interesting. I was just comparing this big final battle with what is actually happening, the whole uprising, uproar about the first episode. The whole purpose of the meat shield is to destabilize and confuse the adventurer. But what really happened is that they're not destabilized because they know what's going to happen. Because Goblin Slayer knew the Goblin's tactic, and they were prepared for. And it's the same thing. Viewers that knew what to expect from the first episode, they weren't derailed by what was happening. As to people that went in fresh,
Oh, yeah. Well, obviously, yeah. I mean, again, right? If you've read the light novel, if you've read the manga, you go in and watch the anime, you know what's going to happen. And the only question, which, again, it was the same question we asked before it aired, was how far are they going to go? Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's, and, walking into it, I mean, but again, man, and again, it's one thing to read it. It's even another thing to read the manga, which is a much more graphic visuals. But man, to hear the voices and stuff just adds a whole other dimension of painfulness to that scene.
Yeah, because when you're reading it, you can go as far as you want to take your imagination.
Yeah, well, no, absolutely right. Yeah.
And when you're watching something, like I said earlier, you're served it on a silver platter with sound, visual, it's moving.
Cinematography.
Yeah, it's a lot more graphic. Like
Yeah.
and you can't avoid your eyes. You can't tone down what you're seeing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
easier to, even if you really can't stand something, skip a few lines. Like if it were in there and
Yeah.
very viscerally described, you could skip a few lines to get past it. Not as easy in a show. You'd have to actually like physically skip, and you don't know where it's going to end. You know?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah. No, you're
Which
that's
begs
true.
which begs the question why anyone would think any of this is titillizing.
Well, I mean, I got to admit, I don't, I did not see as much of that, and I mean, obviously it was out there. I that really, again, that really disappoints me. That I don't know whether. Now, did they actually mean like they thought it was turning people on, or do you mean that they thought that it's being sensationalized so that people are like, holy crap, I can't believe they did that, I'm going to watch more? Like, well, like what did they mean?
They pretty much came out and said that the way that the scene is directed and portrayed is meant to titilize the viewer and portray the scenario in a sexualized manner.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't see it that way at all.
I heard a lot
That's-
of those.
Really?
Yeah.
God, I did.
And that if you enjoyed the scene for what it is, you are most likely a rape apologist or some other term.
Oh, okay. Well,
And on that note, I think I can plug in one other of the question we ask. What your friend said basically is one of the question we ask is in relation to all of those comments we read before, like that watching like sexual violence, scenes of sexual violence in media, like that it can make you like an aggressor or a rapist or a violent person. And basically she said that if you're in the minority that has if it's inside a person, like it can maybe nurture it, but it's not something that you'll develop a sense of violence just because you're watching it. And also what she said is that it can go on the other side, like if you, it can boost your morality, like if you're against it, yeah, you'll be even more sensibilized and you'll be more aware of it as a problem. Like it won't make you a rapist, like a lot of YouTubers said when all of this came out.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure a majority of people can tell the difference between fiction and reality. And see, this is a fictional. This is a fictional showcasing of how horrid it is, and how horrid for its victims.
Yeah, and another thing she said.
Depiction. That's right. Depiction. That's the word. Depiction. That's the word I wanted.
And another thing she said that I find really important, like, is in her area of work, like in the work she's doing, like she said that a lot of media, as in journalism, like they're not well informed enough to talk about it. So when they spread the word, like it's misinformation, and then this misinformation gets into entertainment media and then just spread the myths. And yeah, that's like sometimes like people will just react to something that they don't really comprehend. So
it's like seeing but not understanding. It's like
Yeah.
you see a tree but you don't know how a tree works. It's like a majority of these people, they see but they don't understand.
yeah, but they think they understand. That's the worst part. Like,
But you don't understand. That's the problem.
They scratch the surface without digging any deeper.
well, I think,
Yeah.
but I think also what, like, with that whole point of what she was saying in terms of the, it can really boost you one way or the other. I mean, maybe that's why we did see, like, we are living, let's face it, we're living in a world, and I mean, yeah, there can be lots of debates, but we're living in a world where it is becoming very, very clear that there have been a lot of women who have been victimized for many, many years and never felt that they could speak out because of a difference in power, intimidation, whatever the case may be. We have had a culture that turned a blind eye to violence against women and everything else. And, now that is much more out in the light, and I'm not going to say that we've gotten it right or we've figured it out, but now that that's more out in the light, maybe that's why a scene like this, if she's saying it boosts your feeling one way or the other, maybe that's why a lot of people did have such a violent reaction to it. You know what I mean? Because there is so much more awareness that this is out there and it's a horrible thing and it's actually happening to real people. And, maybe that's why people had such a strong reaction to it, and why, it's one thing to have violence, like just plain old violence. I mean, my God, like anime's got violence coming out the wazoo. It doesn't matter what you watch, right? But so I don't think anyone's too put out by violence when they watch anime, but definitely not every anime has sexual violence. And I think that is definitely something where, if you're a Crunchyroll or you're a media place that's putting this kind of stuff out, like you need to say something. Like that's not, this is above and beyond the average of what we have in content wise, right?
Yeah, the thing I also want to mention about the whole thing, like women coming forth, I mean, yes, let's be honest, there were times when women or children or people were raped and no one spoke out, but I think you sort of look, and we haven't got it right yet, we're still working it out, but, think about the progress we've made now. People are coming out, scumbags and these sexual predators that have been attacking women and children and even men in some cases, they're being brought to justice. The curtain is being pulled back and the light, like the best killer of bad ideas is sunlight, like exposure, like exposing them for what they are, and I look back at it as like that. It's not like a bad thing. It's a victory because we are progressing as a society.
No, you're right. I mean, there's definitely, well, I mean, even if you take a look at all sorts of things in our social movements over the years, right? Like, my mom, I mean, I don't know whether I should air my dirty laundry, but anyway, during like growing up, a lot of dads in the like 40s and 50s and stuff would drink and be violent, but it was like a dirty little secret that nobody told each other, right? And it wasn't until like they were all adults. Well, but that's it. Like no one really did though, right? Like there was suspicions, but like the kids would never speak about it. Like the kids would never say, hey, I had to hide. My mom hid us in a bedroom and locked the door because my dad got drunk last night. No one would say that. But then now that you're adults and, you don't drink much and stuff like that, and you're talking, you start realizing like, holy crap, we went through the same stuff. And it's not like this. And it suddenly you start realizing that the world isn't exactly what you saw before, as we discover things like, again, I don't want to over politicize things, but when you think about like, say something like the church, right? People thought the church was a place that was safe. People would have never thought that priests would commit horrible crimes. Now that's out there. And it's not something that people look at you and go, oh, no priest would ever do that. No, like if you were attacked by a priest and came forward now, people see it as a credible thing that should be investigated because it's a possibility, right? Whereas, 30 years ago.
My child, welcome to Palms Open Sunday.
Oh my. Okay. But you know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm just saying that as society progresses and as we, as you said, pull back the curtain on things, we certainly do change and we certainly do start seeing certain realities that we never realized were there. And definitely we are starting to get to that point of, with sexual violence and stuff like that, where, we do have a culture that we're starting to realize that, yeah, it is not, there have been a lot of cases where rape has been almost glorified, or that, there have been powerful men that have thought, pretty much treated it like their right to do whatever they want to whoever they want,
Because these people are predators and they hide.
And that's it. And I can see where because of that, when you have something that is entertainment, and let's face it, anime is supposed to be entertainment. When you have entertainment that has content like that, and nobody says, like, be careful, because there is stuff in here that's, depending on your life situation and depending on who you are, could really bother you. I can see where there is the strong feelings against it. But at the same time, like I said, I still don't want us to get to the point where it's like, I can dislike a part of Goblin Slayer, but still like the other 95% of the content.
Yeah, it's not like it isn't all about rape and stuff. It's about the other things. It's about adventure. It's about dungeon crawling. It's a greater sum of its own parts. There's more to it. There's more to Goblin Slayer than the gratuitousness.
Yeah.
And people should give it a chance. Like, people should just say, like, rape first episode, skip. Like, at least give it a couple of episodes. Watch Goblin Slayer and Priestess hang out. Watch them introduce High Elf Ultra. Dwarf Shaman Lizard Dude. Watch Lizard Man Dude freak out on cheese. Like, that's funny.
Well, and again, like, I mean, this is where sometimes, like, and particularly because we're a light novel podcast and light novel focused, I wanted to say, like, the light novels are different. The light novels, I felt handled the material in a lot more respectful way, in a sense. There is definitely that content. There is still some definitely disturbing stuff that you want to caution people on, but
but the content is like maximum 3 lines.
Yeah, it is toned down a lot, and because like you were saying, you can kind of censor in your own mind how far you go. Like, you can stop yourself from going completely down the rabbit hole, whereas you don't have that control when you're having images thrown in front of you.
And people do that naturally. They censor stuff they don't want to hear. Like, if I see a phrase in a book that I don't like, I just skip that page. It's just like, oh, that scene's coming up, I'll just skip ahead. Like, people could do that naturally. It's not that hard. All it takes is just a quick, like, oh, I don't like seeing this, so I look away,
Yeah. And I think that, and like I said, I think too that, when you have some people that are, being against people, like, oh, you can't like, whatever. I think the thing is that, understand that when it comes to a lot of these stories, there are multiple mediums that these stories are told in. And one medium can be very, very different in how it presents the story than another. We've said that a couple of times. And we should re-emphasize that point because, I do find that it's true. Like, light novels, I find generally will handle that stuff in a less gratuitous way than a manga or an anime. And that, the big, and maybe it's too because a lot of books get a lot more into characters and into characters' feelings and thoughts and everything else. You don't get quite that same depth of character in an anime or even a manga. Sometimes you do with manga, but not as much.
Yeah,
right?
But with light novels, it's easier because it's either from third person or first person perspective. Like, for example, in High School DxD, you can hear what Issei thinks. You can hear the insecurities. You can hear what he thinks. Or like with Toma, or Kojo, you can hear what these people think deep down. They don't showcase it in the anime because that's really hard to do without it being an info dump. But in like books, you hear their thoughts, you hear the insecurities, you hear like, oh, am I good enough? It's like, what am I doing? You hear those conflicts.
I was gonna say it's the same with even visual novels. Like, when you look at a popular series like Fate Stay Night, like when you hear about it in the anime community, everyone's like, "Oh, I can't stand Shiro. He's the most fucking bland protagonist I've ever seen." And then, if you actually read the visual novel, he's actually one of the most complex and interesting characters in the entire series.
There's literally like no thoughts. Like the Fate Stay Night series, like probably 60% of it is his thought process. In the visual novel, and then in obviously the anime, they just cut that entirely, pretty much.
Like in Tsukihime, like the entire prologue, like some of the arcs for the main protagonist is him going insane. I mean, how cool is that? You get to in the visual novel, you get to play through him losing his fucking marbles, and how cool is that as a concept?
But Tsukihime doesn't have an anime, so
basically introspection enhances a story.
Yeah, that's true. And again, like I said, you do see characters dealing with inner hurts and insecurities and stuff that you don't see in anime. Like, you just don't. And it adds
because that's inner stuff, not outer stuff.
Yeah.
Because like to make a really good character in a medium is to have their outer and their inner. Their outer is what they portray themselves as. Their outer is their personality. Now their inner could be completely different. Like in Vampire the Masquerade or in World of Darkness games, you have a concept called nature and demeanor. Now, demeanor is a core part of what you act like. So if your core demeanor is rebel, you're acting like a rebel. You know, that rebellious, you can't tell me what to do. And your nature is a core part of your personality. Like, for example, say, just my nature is caregiver. I'm going to be caregiving for you because that's a core part of my personality, is to care for people. Like Justice, if you're hurt, I'll be caring for you, despite the fact that I'm acting like some sort of rebel, as an example. Like, there's an outer and an inner, and a truly great writer can pull it off amazingly. They can and that's what makes characters more multi-layered. When you have the introspection, when you have that, that nature, and not just the demeanor they give off.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing Goblin Slayer obviously being told is told in third person, and usually from the point of view, obviously from Priestess or another character, not from Goblin Slayer that often, because that's the whole thing, is about the mystery of who this person is, and and how is he going to be brought back and all that kind of stuff. So, we haven't talked about the plot of Goblin Slayer so much. It's been more just kind of going
it's
around
about killing goblins and nothing else. Podcast over.
Well, pretty much the plot is pretty much just following Goblin Slayer and his party as they do certain quests, and they pretty much try to influence Goblin Slayer to be more humane as a person.
Yeah.
To try to help his trauma.
They're trying to help him find his humanity.
Well, yeah,
it's a simple premise.
It is. It's a very simple premise for and again, like we said, it plays so heavily on the tabletop RPGs. I mean, I have not been as heavily into tabletop RPGs. I know I'm probably missing hundreds of references. I mean, but even the way that characters are named is like Jean-Luc was actually saying that in. Where was he saying that in another podcast of ours? Was it the anime one where we were talking about how the author said in an interview that the reason he named the characters was that he figured people would come up with their own names for the classes?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I come up with my own names.
Yeah, it's because since he's also a big Dungeon and Dragon player and game master, like he thought that with removing the name and just putting class name, like people will be able to customize the character to their taste. Like if anyone could take this character and go out on any adventure with them, with renaming and customizing to their taste. So it was pretty much his approach. But he also said in the interview that they also come up with some names, but it just stuck with the classes and dropped those names.
Anyone still find it funny how instead of calling her farm girl, he decides to call her cowgirl, and she has two huge udders.
Oh man.
On her chest.
I think I actually
you
mentioned
couldn't have just called her farm girl.
I know.
You mentioned that, yeah.
But
I did mention that I found that was funny that I don't like the sexual violence part of it, but I find calling her cowgirl probably more offensive because I'm like that's just blatant, come on. Like, I can handle goblins are evil, horrid little monsters that deserve to die, but come on. Like you said, why can't you call her ranch girl or farm girl or
Yeehaw, cowboy.
Well,
yeah, but
still.
Maybe in Japanese it didn't sound well, and I don't know how they call her, but maybe Ushimusume or Ushiko, maybe.
I don't know whether that is maybe it's a literal translation or not. I don't know, but man, yeah, that's the one thing.
The thing of Japan, the thing of Japanese is that many things mean different languages depending on the kanji. Like a single word could have different connotations depending on the kanji
True enough.
I mean, I'm learning how to speak Japanese, and I've only scratched this. I'm learning how to I'm just writing symbols down so I know what they mean. I'm just scratching the surface.
Yeah, no,
Jesus Christ, we got a fucking weeboo in the podcast. God damn.
What, you think we only have one? Are
Fucking
you
shit,
serious?
He's been reading Rosetta Stone for like 2 weeks now. He's Japanese.
Okay. So we've already gone well over 2 hours, and I have to edit this, and it's going to take me 18 days to do it because we're so long.
And then we've got Index next week, this upcoming weekend.
Yes,
oh, yeah.
Yes. So yes, as Bio just said, our next podcast is going to be on a certain magical index. We thought that was also an appropriate thing to do, seeing as how after, what has it been, 9 years, they finally put out a third season?
I think it's been like
So we thought it was a good time to sit down and talk about a certain magical index. I'll probably just stick around for the news, and then I'll just sit back and let them go because I've only read the first volume of that series. But
just let us go ham. We'll be fine. We'll take care of it.
It's all good.
Fine.
Cool. All right. So in any case, that is where we will end our discussion tonight. If you have sat through this entire thing, thank you very much. Look forward to your comments in the comments section, and hopefully we've approached this topic in a bit more of a respectful and more thoughtful manner than just the knee-jerk, let's clickbait this to death kind of thing. But just
go
before,
check the questionnaire.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, yes. Go check that out. Flyz, sorry, did you say you had one thing you want to say?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna bring it up because I didn't know when to bring it up. For the people who have the argument that the gratuitous scene in the first episode would have been better if we knew the characters' backstories. Let's just say that their backstories are slightly hinted at in the novel and the manga, and they're as generic as they come, and the characters aren't really actually important anyway. So I don't think they were even necessary to put into the anime.
You know what though?
Oh, how heartless of you! Nah, just jokes.
Well, but honestly though, I'll just say this really quick because we should wrap this up. But honestly, I think that would have made it more horrible. Like, if I had cared about the character even more, my God, that would have been even worse. I mean, it was bad enough just that, it was happening to a relatively generic character, but oh my Lord, I don't know how
they left it out for screen time.
Well, I think they left it. Well, I think they left out for screen time. I think they left it out because, again, right?
Would knowing that the warrior kid is like from a farm town, and knowing that the fighter has a martial art from her dead father, would that have made it added really anything that much to the scene?
No, it's still gonna die.
In real life, if you see someone getting raped, are you gonna suddenly care more? Are you gonna care less because you don't know about them, or what I'm trying to say is the crime is terrible in any context. And that just because you don't know the person's backstory doesn't make it any less terrible.
Yeah.
I see there, lady. You're being attacked. I wish I could save you, but I don't know your backstory. Sorry.
I don't know your whole history, so I don't care as much.
Please make me care.
I do think it hits...
Oh, that's terrible.
It definitely hits harder, though, if you do know them. And I think if, let's say, red shirts in, Star Trek and stuff, they're getting killed all the time, and it's not oh, I don't really care, oh, that random red shirt, oh, whatever. I think it does hit harder if you know a character, but I see your point that it should be something where no matter who it happens to, it's absolutely awful. But
it would have been different if the scene happened halfway into the novel, but it was literally the first chapter.
Well, and again,
people who make their argument are thinking of their ethos, they're thinking of emotion. It's look how horrible it was, but they're not really thinking of the logic behind it.
Well, again, right? I mean, as I said, I if you take a look at that opening scene, if you frame it in the context of it is showing you the trauma that Goblin Slayer experienced, so you understand why he is the way he is, why he does what he does. If you look at it in that context, then like that scene isn't about, again, the scene isn't about titillation. The scene isn't about, it isn't even really about those characters. It's about the world building that's happening because of what those characters are going through. Well, like, what does it teach us? It teaches us that, you know, lots of adventurers go out and they're inexperienced. It teaches us that lots of adventurers have a very huge misconception of what goblins are and what goblins are capable of. It shows us that goblins are horrible creatures that should be exterminated. It shows us that there's a reason why Goblin Slayer is as damaged as he is. You know, like, it really does a huge amount of world building and even sort of character building for the main characters in just that brief moment. I mean, in a lot of ways, like I said, if you look at it from just a writing point of view, I mean, it makes sense. You may not like it, and I accept that, but for what it manages to teach you about what's going on in this world in just those few pages, it does a pretty good job. So anyway, again, you know, I think that, you know what, it's time to wrap this up. But again, thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your input and your time. And again, we'll be back here with our next episode, which will be a bit of a lighter episode, hopefully. You know, the worst that we do will punch people in the face because they're living their life wrong. So that'll be a certain magical index. Until then, thanks so much for listening, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye for now.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
See you.
For show notes and related links, visit lightnovelpodcast.com.